What am I to do?
Welcome to He Said, She Said Razor Branding Podcast with Michael Russo and Jaci Russo. To learn more about how to improve your brand, visit brandrusso.com.
Welcome to He Said, She Said Razor Branding Podcast. Y'all, today, Ann Barilleaux is our guest. And for those who are not familiar with Louisiana names, I'm sure you were wondering how to pronounce her last name. It's Barilleaux. And bank advertising is one of those complex industries. And I loved, Michael, to be able to dive into it with her and talk about all the things they're doing as they spread across the state, because bank advertising is hard.
It is. And we have, we've kind of been through the trenches with several banks over the many years, and we're currently working with one in Texas and out of market. And it's challenging, but very rewarding, because community banks are special because they are tied to the community, and that gives them an immediate emotional connection when executed properly and dealt with the right way. And I think they're doing that right with Ann and JD Bank. And I think again, the challenges they have, having small teams, having big markets, having not necessarily the biggest budgets at times, you have to be really smart, strategic, and know exactly who you're talking to and what you're saying to them.
Well said. I don't think I could have said it better myself. So y'all, let's give a listen to the conversation with Ann. I think y'all are going to hear some interesting info on how she handles it.
What am I to do when the day is through?
Ann, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you. Good morning.
Well, good morning, and thanks for being here. I went back through my list, and unless I've misjudged, you are the very first bank marketer we've ever interviewed.
Oh, wow. Well, that's flattering and intimidating. All to say.
No, I think it's great. We really try to focus on complex industries. And so we do a lot of B2B, manufacturing, tech, professional services. But I went through all the guests. I could not find a bank marketer guest. So I think you're it.
Well, awesome.
Yeah. No, I'm very excited because, we have at the agency have had a ton of bank clients over the years. We love banking. And I think it is a very complicated marketing situation for y'all. Would you not agree?
Well, marketing in a regulated industry is complicated no matter which.
Correct.
Whether it is banking, healthcare, utilities, and, fortunately my background is in all of them. But the interesting part is, the marketing aspect is very regulated, and there are a lot of compliance rules that you have to follow. And fortunately, we have a wonderful compliance department here, and we work very well with them. We work very closely with them. I always say, marketing is an easy thing not to get in trouble for with an auditor or anything, but each auditor is different, and they're looking for different, they each kind of have a different thing that they look at. So you have to pay attention to the rules and the details in any industry, but especially banking. And recently, like one of the most, there are all of the rules and regulations, UDAPT, CAN spam, FDIC, but the FDIC also just changed all of their rules about signage. So every bank had to go in and change what they call the FDIC digital logo, the digital sign. Mm-hmm. But then you had to go in and look at your bank and find out where those FDIC signage had to be placed within your branch, because not all products and services are FDIC insured. And then there are some banks that are going to where there's a little more free workspace, kind of like, I'm going to use the Capital One Cafe as an example.
Right.
So they kind of changed the signage rules and regulations down to the colors.
Right.
So we had to do a lot of research, and this is where our fabulous compliance department comes in, and make sure we were compliant and we were doing it correctly within their timeframes. And they're always moving that finish line. So we rolled out ours fairly early, but then, as the finish line moved, we were able to tweak it and really follow the guidelines, but do, something that worked for us.
Right. Well, and I think it's complicated because of compliance. I think that's a very fair point. I also think it's complicated because to the consumer, all banks kind of seem the same. And
Yeah.
so that makes marketing hard because you've got to be able to find ways to stand out while still staying compliant. And in a marketing message world where you've got, 4 seconds to get their attention or lose them forever.
You mean offering good service isn't different than everybody else?
No, Michael, offering good service is not different than everybody else. Most people talk about good service.
That's the number one thing. That's the number one thing everybody starts with. What makes you different? Well, we're really about service. And well, yeah, a lot of people are about service, but what else,
Well, what really I love about where I work is, you're kind of kidding about service, but we have long-term customers. And what I find is banking is all about relationships. The marketing is, you want to drive new customers and you want to tell them what your products and service are. But, if you think about your first bank account, I mean, I'm this way, your parents signed you up for it. So you kind of get your customer base based on your relationships, because if you're not providing that good service and you're not providing quality products, people will move on. But if you're providing the good service, then most of the banking products are the same. They're very similar.
Right.
But Southwest Louisiana, or Louisiana in general, and I would think y'all kind of feel this as well, is about those relationships. I mean, when Jaci and I first met, she held up her hand and I saw her ring, and we had an instant connection there about Sacred Heart. And so in Louisiana, it's who's your mom, who's your dad, who's your family. So if we provide this good service and a customer knows if they call up here, if they come in the branch, we're going to know their name, we're going to know their family, we're going to know about their accounts, that means a lot, because when you're dealing with somebody's money, you're dealing with their livelihood and their security. So they don't want to call, especially here in the South Louisiana, a number in New York.
No.
They don't, want to know, we've come a long way from the handshake deals, but they want to know their people. They want to know that you're about the same goals that they are.
100%.
I think you just nailed it though too. I mean, I was joking about the service thing because that is generally, especially in the financial world, that's the first thing people talk about. But as soon as you said relationships and long-standing relationships, that changed everything in my mind. And I don't do business with JD Bank, but all of a sudden it changed who you are. I'm like, oh, they're that bank. Right. So that is a great explanation or definition. Obviously, you know what you're doing and you do a good job at it. But from the consumer side, that changes the whole conversation. It went from I don't know who you are to I know exactly who you are, because I'm from this area, I am from this region, and those are the things that I want and expect. And it's just a great way to when you really get down to what's different about you and how do you bring that to the top. And I'm sure there's a lot more to it, but that is a great way to kind of put that into context.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, 100%. And as a bank that's so focused on being in the community, which I think y'all do a great job, and being of service to the community, not just selling products, you've expanded your communities. Y'all are growing. Yeah. How do you, from a marketing perspective, build those new relationships and understand these new markets you're moving into and how to best get the attention of customers, because they're going to have to leave a bank to come to you? And how do you get them to make that switch? And it's like 5 different questions in one. So you can pick any of those, wherever you want to start.
People are the key. So you hit the nail on the head. We are expanding across South Louisiana. We haven't moved up to North Louisiana yet, but we are headquartered still in Jennings, Louisiana, which is small. It's community oriented. We have people that have worked here for over 40 years. So we know the people in Jennings, we know that. And then we moved to Lake Charles, and gosh, it's been 10 years. We moved into the Lafayette market. Wow. which, it's just key to have those right people in place. And I'm not sure when this podcast is going to air, but we're opening a branch February 2nd in Baton Rouge, and we have a loan processing office there now. And we have a loan processing office in Mandeville as well, which covers the North Shore area. But we also have branches in Opelousas, Mamou, Ville Platte, and Eunice. So, marketing to Eunice and Ville Platte is way different than Baton Rouge and Mandeville, which is way different than Lake Charles, because our state is so it's the coolest state because people are fantastic no matter where you go, just personable and warm. But, one of my best things I've got to do was we ran branding spots. We're still trying to grow our recognition and even our smaller markets like Mamou, Eunice, and Ville Platte. So we did a commercial in Cajun French in Ville Platte, Eunice, and Mamou, and it worked off the chart. It probably ran longer than, a normal campaign would, but people really related to that and loved it. And we ran it in English in the Lafayette market and the Lake Charles market. And we had radio, video, and both radio and video spots in the different medias. But that really is not something that would run well in Baton Rouge. So you really have to listen to your people who are boots on the ground, and you have to spend time in those communities and, go to events and read the magazines and find out what works for that market. Because I'm going to say, Baton Rouge is probably our most metropolitan market, even compared to Mandeville and New Orleans. So what I'm going to have to do there is different than every market across the board. And there's a lot of research and a lot of education. And you can't just put up a billboard or a magazine ad or buy some, Netflix spots and think your deal is done. You have to really engage your people. And as a marketing person, my team has to be engaged, and my executive management team has to be engaged in all these areas to grow our business.
Well, the world's changed a lot in banking too over the past 20 years. I remember one of our first accounts was First Bank and Trust out of New Orleans, and at the time they were the official sponsors of the Saints. They had they were acquiring banks all over the place. They were really focused on business growth, and for them it was really about locations at the time, and they really wanted to push that out there. Now I'm looking at your locations. I mean, you'll have one location in each of these towns, and you don't need that as much, right? And the communications is so much more valuable. How do you communicate where you're at? Because you don't need a branch on every corner like maybe you once did. I need tellers everywhere. I need to have that reach. Well, it's just a different world now. People are doing more online banking. People are doing it a lot differently than they did. So how do you approach that angle as far as getting the word out?
Yes. People do still like to come in and have that one-on-one relationship, but you're right. You don't need a bank in every market or a branch on every corner because everything is digital and the world is moving so fast. So that is the really cool thing about social media advertising, digital advertising. You're actually getting into people where they are. No one ad is going to change somebody's mind about where they bank. If you're in a news article or you're or in a digital news article, or if you're in, a Sudoku game, but the repetition and really seeing, you can advertise different products and different services, but technology has made it where you can keep your storefront, but you can also get into people's home. Geofencing is still one of the coolest things ever because I can, we had a big mobile home campaign several years ago, mobile home financing. So I could locate people, shopping in those mobile home dealerships, and then I could deliver my ad to them immediately. So it is more, you're getting more value out of your spend, especially for us, because we don't have, I would never be able to sponsor the Saints or even LSU football or LSU athletics, just based on my budget. But I can target my dollars to those people who I want to market to. And then once you get one product, you see how great we are, and then you'll grow your relationship.
Mhm.
Just to be clear, they couldn't afford to sponsor the Saints either. They took 95% of their budget on the sponsorship, and we had 5% to tell people that the sponsorship existed.
Wow.
It was a very challenging year for us that first year. And then we eventually were able to do more things, but it was hard.
But it
because,
was successful.
it was very successful, but we were doing a lot with a very little bit because we had this really nice budget and then we had no budget. It's gone. It was gone.
Well, just on the side note, the guy that hired us there, his name was Joe Canizero, who passed away this past year, but he was like a New Orleans legend. He built like New Orleans. His architecture was all over the place and his buildings and all that. And very impressive guy. And but anyway, he was very intimidating too. Like I said, it was one of our first big clients that we had, and he negotiated us into a very bad deal. Basically, we took that deal knowing that if we didn't have a certain return, we wouldn't get paid. Basically, and I don't know what the deal was exactly, but Jackie knows. But we took it and we ended up doing it. And I think he I don't know if he hated it or was impressed by it at the end. But
he both was impressed by it and regretted it, because what we originally suggested he pay us was 12% of what he ended up actually paying us because he tied us to growth. And I was like, okay, sure. And then they grew and it was like, oh, we look like rock star, brilliant geniuses right now.
And I think we agreed to before we knew the budget, before we knew that all the budget was gone for this thing. Yes. It was like, oh, that's what we have to work with. Great. Yeah. So we did a lot of guerrilla type things. And
it was 2005, 2006, and New Orleans had been hit by Katrina in 7 and 8. We ended up with them until almost 10. But yeah, enough about us, Michael. Let's get back to the client.
Just a funny story.
Our guest.
What's so funny, and I'm kind of segueing or changing the subject, but people don't realize how expensive marketing is and how expensive the sports dollars are for very little
return
or product. I get hammered all the time by our staff, because a dollar goes further at one school than it does in another, but people still don't realize how much. And now, with NIL, I'm getting these emails from, I guess they're agents, for LSU. And I got
sometimes it's an uncle, sometimes it's an agent.
And I'm like, no, I can't. I mean, that's just so far out of my box and my wheelhouse and my budget. And I have a good budget. I'm not I'm going to say anything, but that's just what kind of amazes me too about marketing in general, is people don't realize the expense of it. And then that's the first thing they're like, oh, well, you can just, cut that, or you can cut that, or we can do back on that.
Yeah, well, it's the first thing cut every time.
Yeah, and as a community bank, I'm sure you're tapped in all the time. People are always asking for, hey, can you contribute? Can you contribute? That's what people go. They go to banks, they go to car dealerships, they go to hospitals, and hey, can you?
Well, Michael, they have a vault full of money.
Well, exactly. Let's start with the bank.
Yes, and you just, but there are several people that do feel that way, and they have well, we're your customer, so you should contribute, whether I have $5 or I have 5 million. And it is a unique balance of what is the best for our customers and for JD Bank. Cause at the end of the day, we are the fiduciary stewards of the money.
Right.
They're entrusting us with, and we can't be everything to everybody.
No. We've done a couple of times in different markets campaigns where banks were really getting pummeled by, especially community banks, by their customers, by the local high school chambers, whatever, to sponsor, give. And the bank has to show, like you said, that ROI because the fiduciary responsibility is we're investing this marketing budget to grow the bank. And if I'm giving it to you for your high school football program, there's no return on that investment. And so we brought in an approach where we put in place a new program. We took all the money we'd been donating. We picked 12 local entities to support, and the marketing for a month was on how we could best support that entity. And so if it was the local high school athletic association, what could we do in August to drive attention and potential revenue and whatever? And so it consolidated the number of people that were getting help. As you know, 12 is a very small number in each market. And it caused some hurt feelings, but people had an opportunity to apply. But it stopped the 250 where they just kind of nip at you. And we were able to consolidate and do a more concentrated effort. The return was impressive.
That is a great plan, because you really, if this comes out harsher than I mean to, y'all can cut this.
No, you're good.
But $50, like, people will $50 you to death. And $50 makes a bigger impact maybe in a smaller market or a smaller school than it does in a bigger market. But if we can find our ways to collaborate these dollars and make a big impact. So you might get the big impact this year, and you might get the big impact next year, but it'll actually do something meaningful for these organizations. And that's one of the things I'm trying to help transition our team members to really think about, because they want, especially in our small communities, they want to be able to do things, one, that they've always done, and two, to help their communities. But you're not making an impact, and you're really not helping them if you're just funding a bake sale instead of saying, okay, the school really needs this, so let's find a way to make this work. And it might just be this year, but it's going to be meaningful to you, to them, and to your community. And you'll see the effects, ripple as you make these more meaningful, impactful donations.
Well, and Jackie, I don't know if you remember, but it may have been the same time or entity, but we also piggybacked on their media buy, and whoever this was, and we would run PSAs for their events, and it was tagged with the bank's logo at the end and signature and all that stuff, and but they got to have basically helping to endorse them in the community, because they already had a media buy out there. So they would take a percentage of the media buy and put it towards these sponsored events, and it was their donation. And people felt heard. They felt accepted with that. They got something out of it, and the bank got an extra piggyback on their messaging that they were supporting the community. It was a really nice tie-in that went on for a couple of years, I think.
Yep.
And that's one of the things we do. We have done in the past. We do is, take a percentage of our media buy and do things of that nature, because even free airtime sometimes isn't enough. So those organizations do need to purchase some airtime. So that gives us an extra added value as well.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, but Michael's right. That's been, I think, so impactful. And so, it's really about approaching marketing in different ways. There's no one size fits all, just like you were saying about your different market areas. There's no one size fits all. So you mentioned having 2 LPOs, and for people who don't do bank marketing, and correct me if I'm wrong, most banks start with a loan production office in an area to cultivate relationships, to get their name out there, to build their book of business. And then once they get to a certain predetermined point, they build the branch. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes. That's how we did it.
Yeah. I think that's kind of standard operating procedure.
I think so, but I don't want to speak for anybody else, but that is.
Yeah. Every bank we've ever worked with, that's how they do it. So yes. And so it's an interesting to me from a marketing standpoint, there's a shift that goes on there, because when you get the LPO set up, sometimes it's like a trailer. It's not always a permanent, full size, really nice building yet. No vault with the cash has been installed.
No cash.
And so, those loan officers who you've hired have some relationships, but now they've got to bring those relationships in. And so it's almost as if serving the community by giving loans, serving the community by being a part of it and showing up and being helpful comes first. And then selling, which is kind of more the customer gathering. Would you think that's a fair assessment of kind of how that works?
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. That's the tack we took with our two loan processing offices in Mandeville and Baton Rouge. You know, one, you don't have the capacity to do a full-fledged marketing campaign because you don't offer the deposit services in those markets, and your team are in our case was small. So could they handle any volume generated from that? So it is grassroots, you know, get in those organizations, equip your people with the tools and resources they need to serve those communities with the lending aspects, but also set those relationships up to then bring over the deposit products. Because how easy is it to have your loan and your account at one institution served by your lender and the team that supports those relationships? So, you know, the marketing is very strategic. It is very community based. There is some traditional media that goes along with it. You know, when we knew we were going to open the branch, we started getting billboards around that area to get, you know, our logo recognized, to get those people's faces recognized. We did some work with some of the local magazines, but we didn't do like a full-fledged digital campaign or a full-fledged social media campaign. We just kept it very, I'm going to say basic, but equipped our people to be at the events where, you know, business people were, because it was a business loan protection offices to meet those people, to get our name out there. And then, you know, it is important for your executive team as well to go to be in those communities, to be recognized, to establish those relationships, because you need to understand from top down what the needs of that community are. And that's another thing, you know, that sets a community bank apart from a national bank is your people are here. They can drive to Baton Rouge or Ville Platte or Lake Charles or Westlake to help. You know, our CEO and our president are great about supporting our lenders and going our customer visits. And it makes all the difference in the world. So then on top of that, our branch will offer those additional things and services to these LPO customers.
Right. You know, one of the things I think is fascinating, and you've done such a good job with this, Ann, you have, as we've talked about radio, you've talked about billboard, you talked about geofencing, you've talked about community support. You have really kept a very well balanced approach to your media buying and marketing. How do you keep that balance without getting stretched too thin? What's your approach?
I say no a lot. Well, my approach is, you know, you have to look, it's a market-based approach, and we do our budget every year based on overall what is happening in each market and what we need to do. And you know, I kind of laugh because I was told once by our CEO, you know, $500 for a logo on a t-shirt in Mamu is going to go way more than $500 for a logo on a t-shirt in Baton Rouge.
Fact.
And you have to really look at your market, know what you want to do, and stay on track, and make sure if you're changing, if you find you're going down one path and it's not quite right, that you're able to shift, but make sure you're able to keep that budget aligned with where you want to go and the new medium you want to use.
Yeah. No, that's smart. How do you track I mean, obviously logo on a t-shirt's really not trackable. But are there tips and tools that you can recommend for how to track what is and is not working for you?
With the digital and things of that nature, those analytics come to you immediately. So that is easy. A lot of how we track, I mean, and this is very old school, and it's probably not what my answer should be, is, word of mouth, what is happening. I can tell you another way I can unofficially track it is I knew my Baton Rouge marketing was working when the sales calls just increased significantly. I saw you in this. Let me tell you about this product, which is a good salesperson. They should be looking at their competition and everything.
Right.
But, we try something. If it's not working, we, shift and try something different. But what I love about digital advertising, we don't do text advertising. We save our text messages for important notifications, email marketing. All of that has those analytics that you can utilize to then determine what your next step should be.
Right.
In the world of banking too, I think the past 20 years it's been going on, but the constant acquisitions and disappearing of banks and whatnot, how do you battle that? Is that something that you find your customers are concerned about or ask about, or, obviously, you've been around for a while and you've established yourself as we're not going anywhere. I mean, is that something that you try to reinforce or protect as a part of your brand itself?
It's kind of funny you ask that. Every several years, the rumor comes up, oh, we're being sold, we're for sale, but we would not continue to grow. We wouldn't be building and opening a branch in Baton Rouge. We wouldn't be, having a loan processing office in Mandeville. And it's just, we really do brand on our reputation as Louisiana's community bank, and that we've been here for almost 80 years. We have employees that have been here for 40 years. There's so much longevity here that we have built that trust. And, a lot of these bank acquisitions are actually good for us when a small community bank is then acquired by somebody out of New York or just another large scale or large area that does things differently and that it's not local anymore. And when people lose that feel, they are looking for something new and different. And while we have to grow and change with the times and the regulations and everything, one thing we will always do is have that service, that one-on-one, that, every customer is the most important customer.
Right.
And people really do look and rely on that.
For sure. Do you have any specific planning, either budget or execution around consumer versus commercial? I mean, do you have a whole kind of chapter for consumer and then a different chapter for commercial? Or is it really just name awareness? Whoever hears it, that's great.
No, we have a very strategic plan on how we market to our commercial customers versus how and what we market to our consumer customers. It is two completely different customers, product line. And so you have to make sure you are meeting, sometimes you can cast a wide net with the branding and just letting people know what different products and services are out there, because they're not necessarily aware of that. And somebody who wasn't a business owner yesterday may be on the path to that, or somebody who wasn't a homeowner might be on the path to that. But you really need to look at the ways to meet your business customers where they are, and then meet your consumer customers where they are as well.
Right. Yeah, no, I appreciate that completely. And I think, so all of a sudden, You've got your rural markets and your big city markets, urban centers. You've got your consumer and your commercial, and you've got the pull of needing to be in the community. That's a lot of different hats you're wearing. You must have what, 30, 40 people on your team?
We have a team of 2.
There it is.
There's as most marketing, small bank marketing, as most small business marketing it's myself and a marketing specialist, marketing and community impact specialist that she actually works out of Lafayette, which is very helpful. Our team used to completely be located I sit in Lake Charles.
Mhm.
But I travel extensively, our market areas, because, if I don't know what's going on, it's hard. But our team is very efficient. We know what we're doing. We know what we need to do to get things executed. And what I love is her skill set is not my skill set, and my skill set is not her skill set. So we work very well together. We complement each other. And we have a great team, that if we need something, they assist. And one of the things about the community that I like is our team loves to be out in the community. They love to represent the bank. So I know a lot of times you'll see the marketing director or the marketing team being the ones at all the events or all of the community, they're the face. But in our markets, it's that team, it's that market, and they like to do it and they enjoy being part of the team, which does take some of the load off of us. But yeah, we do a lot of marketing with a small team. And as we grow, one day, hopefully we can grow our team. But for now, it's just the 2 of us.
Yeah. And that's impressive, Ann. And I'm sure you're in the thick of it, so you don't feel it. But, we talked to people. Interviewed somebody a couple weeks ago. They had a team of 200.
Ooh, I don't know if I could manage that.
Well, yeah. I mean, just the marketing team. I mean, they're $1 billion company. They can afford it. But that's a lot of people. And you're doing a similar volume and quality of work with 2. So just, every once in a while, pat yourself on the back, because marketers, I think, are pushed hard to stretch resources right now. And I don't think there's enough acknowledgement of how hard that is.
It is. It's a tough also, because there are many things I want to execute that I know we could be doing or we should be doing, but the priorities have to be managed as well. So there are a lot of things in the pipeline that I hope to get to, but the human resource is not there,
right,
to make those my dreams come true.
Well, it's hard for every marketing team right now in general, just because it's helpful and a curse, technology, because everybody, you can do things so much faster, you can do so much more, but expectations are so much higher too. It used to be, I talk about this all the time, a full campaign would be an ad series, a couple TV spots, a couple radio spots, and some collateral, and you run that for 6 months until you had to update it, and then
or
maybe
2 years.
Yeah, or 2 years even, and then you move on to the next thing. That's every week now. I mean, you're literally doing things like sometimes daily, that whole campaign, and it is, the fact that you can do it is impressive. And the fact that it's expected is hard. I think it's hard on everybody, because that demand is, well, why don't you just use AI, or why don't you just hit the magic button, or why don't you just do this? And I'm like, well, it's not that easy. I mean, it is easier, but it's not that easy still. You still got to have some thought behind what's going on and some strategy.
Absolutely. The tools are lovely. But if you don't know how to use those tools correctly and make them into a high quality product, it is actually a waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of, because, people think if they have a Canva account and AI, they're marketers. And to an extent you can be, but if you want to really have high quality work and get the most for your money and quality, then you have to know how to utilize those tools, so somebody doesn't say, oh, well, she did that with Canva, or things of that nature. But the expectation of immediacy has grown, and it is hard to manage, and you have to know which is difficult is when to say no and when to say no, not yet, but later, because you have to prioritize. But there's so much of, and the personalization, has grown. So people want everything personalized for their customers, their communities. And this is across the board. This just isn't in banking. And that's, used to be you could put one thing out there, like you said, for 6 months and it could all be the same. But now the personalization is one of the key tools that makes it harder with a team of two to deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to put you in a pickle, so you don't have to comment on this at all, but if you can, I'd be curious. I know in our experience, and it happens across the board, but it seems to happen mostly with bank clients, there's always this board of directors who have thoughts on marketing, and they want to share their thoughts with the marketing department, and they don't understand why the marketing department doesn't want to do the things they're thinking this should be done. How do you handle that when people come to you with some cockamamie bad ideas that they think is the magic ticket for marketing?
I think you have just jinxed me because I have the most wonderful board of directors.
I am sure you do.
I know they do not. They really don't come to me with ideas. They like to see. They like to see what I'm doing, and they like to know the reasons behind it. But I don't know which one of them said it, but really, they understand that I am not marketing to them.
Yes.
And that if I'm not quoting them, but essentially if they like my marketing, they know I'm not doing a good job. But they like it, but they fundamentally understand that.
Right.
Now, every once in a while, you get cockamamie marketing ideas from anybody and everybody off the street. And sometimes, though, they are golden, but most of the time you just have to take it all into consideration and weed through it. But I am fortunately in a spot where if as long as I keep them informed and am doing what is relevant to grow the bank, they're not
right.
They're not trying to run that ship.
That's good. I had somebody one time, this is about 10 years ago, wanted us to put their rural bank on Snapchat.
Not a good idea.
Not a good idea.
Well, and that's just like, I know, like I'm trying to find the way to utilize TikTok for the bank. And
that makes sense.
I have not figured it out yet, but I actually was having that discussion with a girl in our HR department who's in her 20s, and she has a ton of ideas. So that I'm going to segue really to her and the marketing specialist, and that will be their role.
Right.
But that's one of those things that has taken a little bit longer than I'd like to execute because of our capacity. Right. If we had a team of 5, that could be somebody's full-time job.
Sure. And look, as long as they can keep compliance happy, I say go for it. But this was Snapchat before anybody had a commercial Snapchat account, and the messages disappeared in 24 hours and you had to friend people. I remember old school Snapchat.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, why do you want the bank, this rural bank, on Snapchat? Well, because my grandson has a Snapchat account. I'm like, ma'am, your grandson's 14. He is not our target audience.
I think that's the key with that, though, and really it's everybody wants everything, but sometimes you can't have everything, like even if you're big, like we have a giant company that we're working with and they want to be on every social media channel on the planet. We're like, why? I don't understand. Like their audience isn't there. So if you just need it to make so when you log on, you feel better, or you have, friends that are, your kids are, you want to see your name everywhere. But the reality is knowing your audience, knowing where they're at, and knowing how to talk to them, and you can have it, one can't live without the other. You can know your audience and know what to say, but if you don't stay in the right place, it doesn't matter. You can not, you can have where they're at, but if you don't say the right thing, it doesn't matter. All those things matter, in the strategy of the world and marketing, right? And so it's just figuring out where that is and what's your bandwidth. I mean, you're right, because TikTok is a lot. I mean, you have to post a lot to make that worthwhile, and you got to really be keyed in with your audience and where they're at and what they're going to identify with. Is it from a thought leadership position? Is it from an educational side? Are you trying to just, build your awareness for those things, or for new and upcoming clients that may be emerging into the marketplace, and you want to
Culture
tap
to
in
recruit
earlier.
the team.
Yeah, all that is relevant. It's a good argument, but again, what's your bandwidth, and can you do it the right way? Can you produce enough organic content that fits? Because if you're in there putting up corporate content, it ain't going to work.
Right. But it is a good tool, like you said, for financial education.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
To recruit your team.
Yeah.
But it's funny that you say that, because this is one of my not so shining moments. I sent out a direct mail piece, and it was designed by somebody who doesn't really do art designing. And I was more concerned about everything else. I didn't focus as much as I should on the image and what the product was. And it tanked. The analytics were terrible. And then once I got it back and I looked at it when I wasn't worried about everything else, I'm like, well, no wonder, because the image didn't meet the direct mail piece, the medium. It didn't meet the medium, and it didn't meet my target audience. It was a beautiful piece. It was an appropriate image, but it would have been more appropriate had it been a social post instead of a direct mail piece to the a segment of the population I was sending it to. So you do have to think about all of that all of the time.
Yes.
And if you're doing it so quickly on social media or TikTok or whatever, your bandwidth has to be there.
Yep, 100%. 100%. One last question, because I always like to go out on a win. Give me a campaign or an approach that was really great, that you're super proud of, and one that you were like, that did not go the way I wanted it to.
Well, I think I just gave you the one that I did not want.
I agree.
Yeah,
So give me the high one. Give me the good one that was like, man, that exceeded expectations.
Well, I really think, I kind of mentioned it earlier, was doing the French spots.
That was good. Yeah.
In the, and I think we actually ended up running one in Lafayette, but in that small market, because it spoke to the heart and soul of that community. And they really liked us acknowledging the heritage of that rural area. But our Zydecash campaign, our Zydecash is our major, is our main deposit account for consumer customers. Mm-hmm. It's high interest bearing. You earn the high interest up to $10,000 if you meet the certain criteria through the month. If not, it's just a regular interest bearing. But it's so much fun because we get to play on everything Louisiana, Zydeco, Mardi Gras, just using, lagniappe is one of the words we use. We did one of the commercials and we featured all the Louisiana products. So that is one that continues to be very successful and very fun. And as long as we keep it fresh and don't change the basis, but make it grow and change over time, that one I just enjoy so much as well.
That's awesome. I love that. And I think that's a really great place for us to kind of wrap up, because highlighting how you can separate yourself from the competition, lean into the community. That's what marketing's about. And that's what I think so many people challenged with, especially in complex industries. And you were awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it. It was nice to meet you, Michael. It was great to talk with you again, Jackie.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And so if anybody needs you, they can find you on social media. We'll actually have it in the show notes as well. Okay. Thank you all for listening and subscribing and sticking around to the end. And we'll see you all next episode.
What am I to do when the day is through?